Hello, everyone. It's Andrew Roble joining from London this time and doing another episode of Live on EE. Recently, we were in Albania, earlier in Lisbon for the Web Summit as well. We connected with you from other places before, but now the time has come to join to join you from London. This morning we had an interesting event. This was the second Tech Emerging Europe Advocates meeting. Tech Emerging Europe Advocates was launched officially last November, on the 24th to be precise. And now the Tech Emerging Europe community is 1 year old. So we're here today with Russ Shaw, the founder of Global Tech Advocates and also London Tech Advocates, which obviously came first, and also one of the founders of London Tech Week, which is the biggest tech conference here in the UK. So it's great to have you with us.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Andrew.
So you joined us for the event this morning as well. So what were your thoughts about what we discussed during the TEA meeting this year?
Well, first of all, congratulations on having an event focused on tech for net zero. It's something that we've been driving across the global tech advocates community for the past several months. So it was really great to be here. It was great to hear a lot of different perspectives. It was very useful to get the investor perspective. What are they investing in terms of tech for net zero across Central and Eastern Europe? What are the challenges that the startups are facing in this space, in that part of the world? I thought was also very interesting. And then the panel that I was on with you and two others was, what is the UK role in terms of engaging with businesses across Central and Eastern Europe or emerging Europe in terms of how we can partner, how we can collaborate? So I think you touched on a lot of important themes and topics that were incredibly relevant.
Thank you. We also invited a group of sustainable startups or startups that are trying to provide solutions to fight climate change and to respond to the needs of sustainable lifestyles. How did you find that part?
I loved it because, as you know, on our Tech for Net Zero Resource Hub, we have a startup showcase where we are trying to feature not just startups in London and the UK, but around the world. So I want to add those startups that you showcased today into our hub and vice versa. And I thought it really makes it very real and tangible that you have startups in North Macedonia and Romania and Ukraine and elsewhere that are really looking at this whole issue. It made it very real and some really great businesses.
So it seems that the emerging Europe region is not that far behind. It actually works alongside a lot of.
But I think that's how we have to look at this globally. Is that one country, one city, one tech hub is further than others. We're all, when it comes to Tech for Net Zero, we're all going through this together. And, as I mentioned in the panel, the clock is ticking. We have to move. And if there's a great idea coming out of Poland or Bulgaria or Albania, great. How do we get behind it? How do we get investors to fund it? Especially in some of these places, if the funding pockets are not so deep, that is our collective gift to give.
As Global Tech Advocates, which obviously Tech Emerging Europe Advocates is part of, we've been looking at tech for net zero for quite some time. Can you tell us a little bit more about what we've been developing over the last months leading up to COP26 here in the UK?
Yes, well, we launched the campaign in May. Through our GTA Connects online magazine. And then in June, we had a UK and European investor showcase event, which you participated in, a hybrid event to really put the spotlight on what are investors thinking about as they invest in this space. During London Tech Week in September, We did a global event. It was in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon here in the UK. We started in Australia, and it was midnight there, and we went all the way through to California. So I know you jumped in as well as we traveled the world to understand what are the similarities and differences around the globe as people are thinking about Tech for Net Zero. Our groups in the Americas did an event at the end of October. And then we had COP26, and Tech Scotland advocates led by Gary Bernstein did a live stream on the 3rd of November from the Green Zone with people talking about what it means for them on the ground there. So we've done a series of events this year to raise awareness. We launched our Tech for Net Zero Resource Hub, and I was absolutely delighted to announce a couple of months ago that Coldplay, the music band, Coldplay has appointed Global Tech Advocates as an associated organization for their Music of the Sphere Sustainability Tour. So I think we're one of 12 organizations that they've partnered with. So that's fantastic too. So a lot of good things happening, but we have a lot of work to do to really get behind more of these startups and scale-ups that are in this space. And that's what the focus will be going into 2022.
But I know that we've also developed certain commitments, because when you look at the Tech for Net Zero area, it's not only startups that are actually active in clean tech or green tech or planet tech, whatever we call the verticals, but it's every single startup that can contribute to fighting climate change. And we know also from the panel discussions today that oftentimes companies are not really particularly aware of their carbon footprint. There are estimates that some companies are only aware of perhaps 10% of their actual carbon footprint. So how do you think these commitments can help raise awareness about how the startup community or perhaps all innovators, because it's not only entrepreneurs, can benefit to fighting climate change?
That's right, and I think to your point, awareness is key. But I think if we can get people to say, "Yeah, I'll sign a commitment to do something," and a lot of what we're trying to do is just to inform and educate people to say, "Here's what that means." It means making sure that in your board meetings you're talking about climate change and what your business can do, even if you don't think you're in the sustainability space. What is your carbon footprint? As I mentioned during our event today, we did a Global Tech Advocates survey. 59% of the respondents from our community said they're not even measuring anything related to sustainability. So if you can at least get people to say, okay, I know I need to do something, let me measure this or let me measure that. That's a start. That's really useful. And then as you build up that data pool, how can you then act upon it? So, there's things from an awareness point of view, from a let's talk about this in the board meeting, let's measure and understand what we're doing. And then there's another element, which is make sure if you're partnering with other organizations, that those organizations have what we call an ESG agenda, environmental, society, governance agenda, that makes sense to do so. So they're just some very practical steps. And I think fundamentally for me, Andrew, that's what our global tech community, advocates community, is all about. It's pragmatic, fundamental, grassroots things that everybody can do that's not so onerous. And I think that's part of what this is all about when we ask people to sign a climate commitment.
So it's interesting that you mentioned the global community here, because a few weeks ago when we, as Tech Emerging Europe advocates, announced the ambassador to Albania, the TEA ambassador to Albania, we invited some of our leads from Canada, from the Netherlands, from the UK, from Germany as well, from Italy as well, and seeing all these people joining together and kind of discussing the same issues that they're facing and sharing, that is particularly important for countries that are part of Tech Emerging Europe advocates.
Yes. I mean, we're all on a journey together. And I know for many of the businesses in Tech Emerging Europe advocates, being connected to other parts of the world is very important. But that's also true for businesses here in the UK. It's one of the key drivers why Tech Italy Advocates was set up. They wanted to connect globally. There's a real hunger and desire from many tech leaders around the world, yes, to connect to their local ecosystem where they live and operate. That's really important. But they want to see and understand what others are doing around the world. And so part of my focus is to keep expanding our Global Tech Advocates Network. So we've now got 22 networks around the world, and we've got at least 4 or 5 more discussions, initiatives going into 2022. So we should be at 25 networks by next year, if not more. And I'm also excited. I'm having discussions to try and set up a Pan-Africa Advocates group, because we're on 5 continents, as you know, with the recent launch of Tech Australia Advocates. Hopefully we'll add Africa to the mix as well.
Can you develop a little bit more on the new areas that will join our network?
Yes, so we've got agreements to launch Tech Berlin Advocates, which is great. Tech Korea Advocates is coming. They're both working on their soft launches. There's actually a 6th group in the UK, Tech Southwest England Advocates, which will soft launch in January. They're based in Bristol, and Bristol is a really important hub for a number of areas, including robotics. And then I've been having early discussions to set up a group in Switzerland, possibly one in Turkey. We've signed an agreement for the UAE, which we were going to launch this year, but we've moved that into 2022. And I'm having discussions on this Pan-Africa Advocates group. And you'll be pleased to know I'm using Tech Emerging Europe Advocates as a model for that, because you're setting up ambassadors across your 25 markets. That is the challenge that we will have for Tech Africa Advocates. So the leads for that are actually based in South Africa, but they're looking at places like Lagos, Nairobi, possibly Accra, where they can have ambassadors to lead chapters that will form part of Tech Africa Advocates. So we're learning from each other here. So thank you for what you're doing, what you do, what Jeanette does with Tech Nordic Advocates, where she covers 8 markets, is really useful as we think about these future groups in the pipeline. But it's all organic, with people coming to me saying, I'm interested in doing this. And sometimes these relationships don't materialize, but hopefully as we extend our global footprint, we're finding the right leaders around the world so that we can bring more of them to your Emerging Europe Advocates tour.
It's really interesting that you're saying that the ambassadorship model or ambassadors model can work in other parts. Our idea with that was to make sure that we actually have people who are local leaders who can push the development of this grassroots movement, as you said, forward, and to make sure that everyone wants to feel that they are part of this global movement, and they can rely, just like I was able to rely on other leads to join me for multiple events, because the Albanian one wasn't the only one that I invited global leads to join me. That I can rely on them anytime I want to have this sort of global.
And it's more critical now than ever with the situation with the pandemic, where you've got people locally, but we can connect through hybrid events like we did today. I mean, Tech China Advocates is another example of that. We almost went the reverse on that. We launched Tech Shanghai Advocates, then we launched Tech Shenzhen Advocates, and then the group that was doing that said, well, actually, maybe we should set up Tech China Advocates, and hopefully we're going to launch a group in Nanjing next year, and they've got another model. So it works, and there's flexibility and adaptability here. But again, folks in those places are very eager to connect globally.
So my final question to you.
Yes.
Obviously, we want to attract and invite more and more advocates to join both Tech Emerging Europe Advocates community and the global tech community. How would you like to invite them to make people aware of this fantastic initiative? and make them part of it.
Yes. Well, anybody who's watching this is welcome to join. I think one of the premises behind this community is that it's open, it's inclusive. Anybody could be an advocate wherever they are in the world. And actually, we have advocates that are in multiple groups. So we have Tech London advocates who are in Tech Emerging Europe advocates and vice versa. So it's really about reaching out to you, reaching out to me, reaching out to the other leaders to say, can I be part of this group? Before the event started today, I brought 3 people who reached out to me on LinkedIn to say, can I be part of this? Yes, of course you can. So we try and make it very easy to be part of this community. But the other dimension to this is because we are a community that grows via network effects, I always say to every new advocate who comes into the group, now that you're in the group, please introduce a new advocate. The London group has gone from 0 to, we're coming up to 13,000 over 8 years, literally with advocates, new advocates introducing other advocates to the community. That's how we grow, and feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you very much, Russ. So yes, do join us. Go to emerging-europe.com/tech-advocates. All the information about the community, our ambassadors, our advocates is there. And hopefully next year, when we do our next Tech Emerging Europe Advocates meeting, 2022, we will be able to join in a bigger crowd. We'll see where, perhaps in London, perhaps somewhere else. And definitely stay tuned to Live on EE. The next episode will be from, again, a place that we will invent on the way when we are there. Thank you for joining us today.